too.
I know, but my whole mind went like, go
Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for October 26, 2022 to order. The time is now 7 o'clock. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item C is a roll call of council members. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll tonight, please.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Councilmember Brocksmith. Here. Councilmember Corrales.
Padilla. Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Holst.
Is excused tonight.
Councilmember Molinar.
Here.
Councilmember Morales.
Here.
Thank you very much. In community comments, item 1 is a review of emails from the public. I'll ask Peter Donat if there were any emails to read tonight.
No written emails tonight.
All right, thank you. Item 2 is public comment. If there's someone here that would like to make a comment, you can please step to the podium at this time. Please state your name and city of residence and limit your comments to around 3 minutes or so.
Sure, thank you. My name's Ellen Gampson. I live in unincorporated Skagit County, but I work in downtown Mount Vernon. I'm just here briefly tonight to extend my thanks to the mayor's staff for their work and cooperation with my organization. In recent months, we've gone from a staff of 3 to a staff of me, and particularly in the Parks and Enrichment Services Department, as well as in your office, your staff has been super accommodating and willing to work with me. And I just want to make sure you're aware what a great team you have and how appreciative I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, anyone else for public comment tonight? Okay. If you go ahead and state your name for the record.
Gilbert Estrada, on behalf of the Housing Authority of Skagit County. I just want to say thank you so much. Thanks so much to the mayor, to the city council members for all your support in our new building and also in our old building, the President Apartments. Many times we call you and ask you to help us to expedite the process, and I just want to say thank you so much for your support and your encouragement to continue with these projects. And this one in particular, this new building in College Way, it was very happy for us to find out the amount of work that you guys did with the city planner and to give expedite the permits and everything. So I just came here tonight just to say thank you, just say thank you to all of you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else here for public comment, we'll move along. Under consent agenda tonight, there's item A, B, C, and D.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Under reports tonight, we have a few committee reports. First up is our Finance and Parks and Enrichment Services Committee report, and that's with Councilmember Mary Hudson.
Thank you,
Here.
Mayor. Tonight's meeting started at 6 p.m. The first item, of course, was the approval of our meeting minutes from September 28th. Then we moved on to a presentation by Jennifer Berner, our Parks and Enrichment Services Director. The one item that she wanted to discuss with us tonight is the Eagle Rock Challenge course, which is located in Little Mountain Park area. She discussed the history of the challenge course and the current status of the course. It has not been operational for over 6 years, and it's in need of a complete remodel. The trees that are holding up the course elements are either dead or in decline, and many of the elements are not usable due to the deterioration of the wood, the ropes, etc. She did want to make a proposal that we take that space and incorporate it into the footprint of the Silver Arrow Bowman Club. The Bowman Club is applying for a grant that will help with the development of the area. The city would renegotiate the lease with the club and outline some added ways the city could work with them on offering classes, etc., through the Parks Department. There was a good discussion with the council about that, and we just want some more information, and Jennifer is ready and going to get it all for us, and she'll bring it back to us. The next item we talked about was our budget for the 2023 year. Director Valesky led us through a lot of things in the budget, and we had several department presentations. That's the time of year. This is when we spend a lot of time on the budget right now, so that's really a big concentration for us. So we did that until about 10 to 7. We have more items on the agenda for next week for the budget, and so we did adjourn our meeting at about 5 to 7.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is our Public Works and Library Committee, and that's Councilmember Gary Molnar. Gary?
Okay, we opened up the Public Works meeting and library on October 12th. After the approval of the September 14th meeting minutes, Blaine Chesterfield talked about it was Flood Awareness Week. Key public staff are attending the relevant flood meetings, and all flood wall components have been inspected and are ready for another possible flood season. The National Weather Service is predicting a La Nina weather pattern, but regardless of whatever happens, they're ready to be deployed if needed. Next, the Surface Water Interdisciplinary Team has been meeting regularly with regarding the Stormwater Management Action Plan, and through research, discussion, and community feedback, have determined that Trumpeter Creek is going to be the top priority drainage basin in our city. Next up, we had Bill Bollock do project updates. Public Works updated the council on upcoming requests for qualifications on 4 different projects to hire consultants for design efforts. Before the end of the year, projects are Division Street sidewalk retrofits. That's for corrective ADA remedies at 10 different locations. 18th and 19th Street culvert replacements. That's for Fish Passage culvert replacement. CSO separation feasibility study, that's removing stormwater from the sewer system at key locations. And the last one was the right-of-way acquisition services for the Riverside Drive and 30th Street improvement projects. Chris Phillips, the Public Works Director, then gave us updates. He talked about he updated the council on an MOU between the county and the city for additional laydown site in exchange for street parking for the Mount Vernon Library Commons project. Public Works staff created safe route to school maps that provided an overview of grant sponsored pedestrian awareness items installed in 2005. City staff will continue updating school maps for future discussion with MVPS. Next, after that, we had library committee, library overview, the work being done on the Mount Vernon Library Commons site, and spoke in more detail about the November launch, which is called Community Ask with an exclamation point. This will give the community a chance to donate to the Library Commons project, which is very exciting. The library reviewed the steps also being taken behind the scenes of the Regional Library Corporation in order to create a more integrated library service in Skagit County. The library spoke about the return of adult programming work to return to pre-COVID statistics, and the development of a new library webpage and more. We postponed the meeting because we ran out of time, and at 7 o'clock, and then reopened the meeting at 7:40, and Doug Valesky talked about the goals associated with the 2023 budget, and this will be ongoing in the next several weeks. And we close the meeting at 8:18.
All right, thank you. Under item 3 is Development Services Report, and that's Councilmember Melissa Beaton. Melissa?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Development Services Committee met last Wednesday, and first up, we had an update from our Director Darren Groh on the city's 2022 legislative work plan. Our shoreline amendments have been approved by Department of Ecology, and we're finalizing the code updates around that. Other amendments include our stormwater code, parks plan, sign code, wireless facilities, and our commercial land needs study is in process. That's taking a look at Riverside College Way. And then we talked about Director Grow gave a short history of our design review process. Mount Vernon's design standards were first adopted in 2005 and started with small lot residential subdivisions, duplexes, and multifamily buildings, and amended in 2019 to include the downtown and create the Design Review Board. The Design Review Board only reviews downtown design standards, and the committee, we talked about and asked Director Grow to present various options for streamlining the design review process, and so he will present those options in November. Next up, our Finance Director, Doug Valesky, gave an overview of the 2023 budget. He discussed the real estate excise tax, or commonly referred to as REIT, which contributes to funding for projects like our Mount Vernon Library Commons project, and he provided a detailed review of property taxes. He also provided a number of scenarios for what changing the property tax levy rates would look like over the next few years. I would like to point out that it's looking like our levy rate next year will be $1.51, which I believe will be the lowest in over 2 decades. It has just continued to go down. So then we heard from department heads from finance, our city attorney's office, development services, HR, library, parks, and police, and each of those department heads presented their budget highlights for their respective departments, outlining service measures and demands on staff resources, as well as additional staffing requests. And with that, there was no other business. We adjourned at 8:31.
All right, thank you very much. Item B tonight under reports is council member comments. Any council member comments tonight? Okay. Under item C is mayor's report. I don't have anything formal prepared, but I wanted to extend my thanks to council member Gary Molinar, who's our mayor pro tem, who fills in when I'm out of town. And so thank you, Gary, for taking that on for me. And also just to our department directors who keep everything going so smoothly so that I don't have to worry when I'm not here. And it's much appreciated, and I know the city's in good hands with not only the staff but our council, so thank you for that. Item D tonight is committee agenda requests. Any committee agenda requests? Okay, no unfinished business. Under new business tonight, item A is the approval of an ordinance, Mount Vernon Code Chapter 9, Crimes Against Persons. Our city attorney is here to present this to council. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, this is basically what's called a housekeeping item. There was a state Supreme Court case about a decade ago called Auto v. Gant, which ruled and held that for your city prosecutor who functions under the city attorney's office to prosecute crimes in the city, in order to retain jurisdiction, we have to adopt those state criminal laws into our municipal code. Every legislative session, the state legislature changes the laws, and quite recently they have moved key provisions to crimes related to violating domestic violence and other protection orders from chapters 2650 and 1014 in the revised Code of Washington, all into a new chapter in Title 7-105. So what this does is correct that in your municipal code and refers to those crimes in the newly codified section in 7105. You'll see the corrections in the proposed ordinance, which if adopted would be 3858 in strike through, and the new language in red underscore.
All right, questions for Kevin about this particular ordinance and code?
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion that council adopt ordinance 3858.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B tonight is the approval of a resolution. This is regarding waiving fees, and our city attorney is here for this. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is a proposed resolution 1020 if adopted. The city attorney's office and planning staff has been in communication with both Gadsden County and the Housing Authority regarding the development of 5-building multi-residence low-income housing development within the city of Mount Vernon. By way of a little bit of legal background, the state recently passed a law that authorizes funding for grants to local governments to pay for system development charges such as sewer and wastewater connections. this project I just identified would qualify for such a grant. However, that law also requires that local governments waive the standard fees normally applied to developers for drinking water, wastewater, stormwater connection charges before they may be eligible for reimbursement. The county applied for and had been awarded and is awarded the grant under the Washington State Department of Commerce Connecting Housing and Infrastructure Program, CHIP, to reimburse the city the $200,379 for the sewer and wastewater connections that have already been paid by the Housing Authority. So it's already been paid, but it needs to be waived. We've had discussions with the Department of Commerce, and they have determined that because the fees have been paid, they are not waived and therefore cannot release the grant of funds to Skagit County. However, they did state it will release the grant funds to Skagit County if the connection fees are waived and scheduled to be refunded to the Housing Authority. A timely refund would then allow the Housing Authority to use the funds for other costs associated with this project. So after lengthy discussion, it was determined to avoid cumbersome and administrative issues. We have proposed a resolution waiving these fees to be held and refunded to the Housing Authority upon Skagit County's payment of the connection fees as authorized under the grant.
All right, any questions for Kevin on this? I know it was
A workaround.
a bit of a workaround, and I appreciate Gilberto being here this evening from Housing Authority, because this was certainly a good effort on our city staff's part to make this all work. So I want to thank Kevin primarily for working on that with them as well. So, any questions for Kevin on this? It would be Resolution 1020. Council chooses to take action.
I would move to pass Resolution 1020.
Thank you. A motion by Gary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Item C tonight is an approval of an agreement. This is with Community Action of Skagit County. Peter Donovan, our Special Projects Manager, is here.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Council. Before you tonight is a CDBG Public Services Agreement with Community Action of Skagit County. So, Council, you approved this use of funding when you approved your 2022-2023 Annual Action Plan. So this is approval that's still needed to authorize the mayor to enter into this contract, because it's a contract that's $10,000 or more, and that's where our threshold still lies. So this is previously approved, and this expenditure, you'll probably recall, is going to be used for Community Action's Housing and Resource Center program. The amount that's awarded here is $35,998. That represents 10% of the city's annual CDBG allocation. The draft agreement has been approved by the city's CDBG consultant, and staff is recommending that council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with Community Action of Skagit County for CDBG public services funding.
All right, any questions for Peter on this item?
I move that we authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with Community Action of Skagit County.
Second.
So a motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Item D tonight is the approval of a street closure for the Mount Vernon Downtown Association. Jennifer Berner, our Parks and Enrichment Director, is here. Jennifer.
Good evening again. So super happy to be back here before you with this event. It has had a hiatus for several years, and so great to see this event coming back. The Mount Vernon Downtown Association is planning their family trick-or-treating event on Monday, October 31st, along First Street, starting on West Kincaid Street and ending at West Division. They're requesting a closure of some of the nearby streets to accommodate the proposed event locations such as Myrtle, Gates, and Montgomery. And for safety of the participants, the streets will be closing approximately Sunday, the 31st at 3 p.m. and then reopening around 6:30 p.m. So staff is recommending the approval of the street closure request for the 2022 Mount Vernon Downtown Trick-or-Treating event.
Great. Any questions for Jennifer on this?
I have no questions. I'll make a motion that council approve the street closure request for the 2022 Mount Vernon trick-or-treating program.
Thank you.
I second, let them eat candy.
Absolutely.
Motion by Melissa and a nice second by Mary. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for putting that together single-handedly. Item E tonight is a public hearing regarding our 2023 property tax levy. Doug Valesky, our finance director, is here for this item. Doug?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So as the mayor stated, I'm here tonight to hold the statutory requirement of holding a public hearing and review of the 2023 revenue estimates. Just wanted to acknowledge that this whole process of working on the budgets with revenues and expenditures both is a team effort with the whole budget process involves many people and not just me, and just to thank everybody for all their work on this. Part of the thing with revenue estimates is there's a lot of things that we must consider when we're working on revenue projections for a budget. And one of the biggest thing is to make sure that we review all of our revenue policies and we make sure that we follow them. So earlier, the big budget process, I discussed the revenue policies with council, and they are, just a reminder, is that the current revenues will be sufficient to support the current expenditures, calculated using an objective analytical process, and will be neither overly optimistic or overly conservative, and estimates will be performed utilizing accepted analytical techniques and shall access the full spectrum of resources available to finance city programs and services. So there is a lot of different information that we look at and we review and ask advice from, and that we get a lot of information when we're coming up with these revenue projections. Some of those are, we look at historical information and trends, where have it's been in the past, how has it been trending, and looking at that. There's several state resources, like the Economic and Revenue Forecast Council does an economic and revenue update that gets updated quarterly, and so we review that. MRSC has a revenue guide for cities and towns that gives us a lot of information too, and as well. And there's also a lot of some of these revenues are state revenues that are, we know the exact dollar amount that it is because they're already been allocated, so we get that from the revenue guide. Talk a lot to management input, and then input from other organizations, the counties, cities, and talk about what they're seeing. So just that there's a lot of effort that goes into this. Oh, sorry. All right. This slide is just I'm just going to go through this pretty fast. Just an overview of all the revenues in comparison to previous year's budgets. Looking at that first top section there, about right in the center here, total taxes are $30,769,000. That's about $1.2 million over what was budgeted from last year. Not what we have been bringing in, but what was budgeted over for last year. So that was about a 4.2% increase overall with everything in there. And so just moving down here, you'll see that the total revenue budget for 2023 is $123,195,000. That's a $46 million increase. I'm not used to talking to such big money over 2022's budget. And the majority of that you'll see is within that intergovernment, state and local sources, the miscellaneous revenues and other finance sources, and these are for the revenues that have been committed for the large capital projects that we have with the Mount Vernon Library Commons, and also the remodel of the Fire Station 3 building. So that's where we're seeing this major. We're not used to getting these great big huge capital projects like this, and that's why you're seeing this in these funds like this. So overall, just to these numbers that we are looking at here, they do talk about using budgeted general fund reserves of about $1.5 million this year. Last year it was about $1.9 million, and we are meeting our financial policy for fund reserves in both the general fund and then also in the City streets, parks, library with their roof reserves coming in at about 10% or over. And these numbers for general fund is about 7.8%, $7.8 million reserves, or about 22.6%. All right, so $123 million for the projection here. Just kind of go over. And this graph is kind of chart is looking at it a little differently. This is showing the difference from the 2022 estimated numbers coming in, not the budgeted numbers as the previous slide showed. So overall, looking at taxes, they're going in about $484,000 below, and I'll go into that more on the next slide. Our charges for services are $25 million, and that's about $1.4 million higher than it was last year. Some of the things that you see in those charges for services, just a reminder, are like the ambulance services. All of our utility fees are coming from there. Their drainage, sewer, solid waste. And then the other thing that's a bigger number in there is all of our overhead and inter-fund services that we have based off our cost allocation plan that we do. So that's what you're seeing inside there for those charges for services. As far as intergovernmental services, there's a increase of about $10 million in there. We're asking for $19.7 million. And of course, this one has a lot of the grants that we're getting, as far as with the Mount Vernon Library Commons project. So we have all the entitlement grants from the federal grant for the Delbany federal grant in there, the Skagit County Economic Development Grant. This area also includes the levy for ambulance services is in there too, and that's $1.6 million. As well as there's about $690,000 for motor vehicle fuel tax, and then our ground emergency medical transportation numbers are also in here. So that's what we're seeing inside that intergovernmental services. As far as licensing and permits go, pretty much staying the same as where we are coming out at this year. And of course, the things that are in there are like franchise fees, and then business licenses and business building related permits. Other financing sources, this is kind of a combination of a few things. We have our non-revenues, which are the revenues that are kind of passed through, like our Mount Vernon School Impact Fee revenues, et cetera. But the big one in here is we also have our TIFIA loan budgeted is coming through our other financing sources. That's the $26 million federal loan that we're hoping to get from TIFIA from the Mount Vernon for the Library Commons project. And then also a lot of our operating transfers are in this category also. Miscellaneous revenues, these are going up by $4.5 million. Some of the things that we see in here are just like our interest earnings, a lot of our facility rentals, gravel pit, and then we have an area amount in here for other miscellaneous revenues, which is kind of for the Mount Vernon, for the Library Commons project that we're hoping to get funding to finish that project out. So that's included in here too, to have that in that budget. And then lastly, fines and forfeits, about $28,000 more than what we received this year, and that's for the traffic infraction penalties, parking infraction penalties, driving under the influence, criminal traffic misdemeanors, and all of those as such. So that's kind of just a breakdown of all of the city revenues in these broad categories. But are there any questions on those before I move forward? I mentioned that I would get into the city taxes. Again, this is based off of our taxes where they're estimated to come out at this year. Property taxes, in the budget is a $38,000 increase, and that is just for the new construction that came in. That's going to be taxed in 2023. We have sales tax of $9.2 million. I have that, the difference in the preliminary budget, difference of about $200,000 from where it's projected to come in at 9.4 this year. That number is actually increasing. We're we just got the last month's again, and that number's pretty high up there, so I'm thinking that number's gonna be closer to probably close to $9.6 million, so. Public safety, this is the, public safety sales tax that just gets passed right through to the county, so whatever we get goes right back out to them. Criminal justice, again, keeping it about the same. The affordable and supportive housing, the House Bill 1406 and 1590 are included in that next section. This 900,000 of that is for 1590 money coming in from the sales and use tax, and then the $65,029 is the limit that we can collect out of 1406, so that's included in there. TBD, or the Transportation Benefit District, at $2.1 million. Hotel motel, like I talked about earlier today, there's about $240,000 in there. And then all the utilities, in lumping them all together there, that's about coming in, we're expecting to come in about the same as they did this year, at just under $4.7 million. Our local infrastructure financing tool program money, our LIFT money, is $500,000. That's all we can collect each year, so have that in there. And then our REIT 1 and 2 combined at $1.8 million, which is about 180 below what we're expecting this year. Talk a little bit about the levy and what we have included in the budget for this year, in the preliminary budget. Just a reminder, on the left side in the blue box there, for 2022, we did have an assessed value of $4.6 billion. We had about $45 million in new construction, which came to about $90,000 in new construction tax. We did have bank capacity total of $778,000. And so our 2021 levy amount for our 22 tax was $8.2 million. We had a levy rate of 1.77. So this year, for 2023, the preliminary assessed value came in at almost $5.5 billion. That was about a 17.5% increase. We had new construction assessed value of about $21.6 million, which is going to bring in about $38,000 in new taxes. We have the implicit price deflator, which is kind of puts the inflationary restriction on how much a city can raise taxes. Is at 6.5% this year, or 6.457%, so that exceeds the 1%. So we could take the full 1% that's allowed, which is $90,800. We do not have that included in the preliminary budget. And our bank capacity went up since we didn't use the 1% last year. It got included in our bank capacity, so that our bank capacity raised to $864,000, and we don't have any of that included in our preliminary budget. So right now, the 2022 requested levy amount is $8,254,041, which is our 2021 levy amount, plus the $38,000 for the new construction. So there's no increase there at all. That brings our levy rate down to 1.5155 per thousands. Any questions on that?
Can you go back to one slide? On the TBD money, is that what you're expecting for next year, or didn't we not use some of it because the price of asphalt was so high?
This is just new revenues coming in.
So that would be the new 21,
Right.
okay.
Right, yeah, and we're expecting that to be coming in over 2.2 this year. So what's not being used is sitting in the reserve for that fund.
Okay,
It's held in a separate fund,
okay,
but yep, you're absolutely correct.
thanks.
Just a little bit more about the property tax. On the right-hand side there, it kind of just shows an inverse relationship between assessed value, and as you see the assessed value and that red line going up, then our levy rate continues to go down. Our projected levy rate for next year, like we said, is $1.5 million. That is, that is the lowest as far as I could find, the last 20-plus years, so it's what it is right now, so. Any questions on that? All right. And then next I want to talk a little bit about sales tax in Mount Vernon. The sales tax rate, just a reminder, in Mount Vernon is 8.8%. 74% of that, or 6.5% of that 8.8 goes to the state of Washington. The city of Mount Vernon gets 10%, or 0.85% of that amount comes to the city. The other thing that, last year, in the last several years, that rate was 8.7. We did get the 0.1% increase in the that housing and related services, which was the House Bill 1590. So that's included in there too. So just a reminder of the 8.8% sales tax rate in Mount Vernon, that the city itself receives 10% of that. The biggest portion goes to the state, and the breakdown of everybody else who gets a portion of that sales tax. And this is just our estimate for sales tax for next year. These goofy graph in the left there with all those squiggly lines shows where we are right now this year, and that orange line, the black line, was where we were last year. As you can see in the bar graph on the right there, we're projected to go down a little bit in 2023. 22, we have it estimated at 9.4, and I mentioned that is numbers actually going to be higher than that. And as you can see in the last 10 rates, I think that number, this is one that we kind of struggle with because you never know exactly what's going to happen. Looking at the last 10, 11 years here, there has never been a decrease, so I feel fairly confident that, I don't feel confident about raising that, but I think we have a pretty good projection here based on what we've been reading and looking at. I haven't seen any negative numbers in any projections yet, but just being a little more conservative there. Oh, going backwards. All right, and then just some other major city revenue that I think would be kind of important for you guys to know about. Ambulance services, we're projecting to be about $1.6 million next year. Our surface water utility fees at 3.1, sewer at 9.2, and solid waste at 6.4. And those are based also off the rate studies that were done that council approved. Those are increased by CPI each year. Our GEMT, or ground emergency medical transportation revenue, we have estimated at $900,000. Motor vehicle fuel tax is $690,000. Marijuana excise tax distribution is estimated to be about $85,000. Ambulance services this is the ambulance levy at $1.6 million. Building related permits at about $600,000, and then our REIT 1 and REIT 2 I have in there at $900,000 each year, or excuse me, for each one. This year we're projecting that at being about $990,000. In 21 it was over $1 million. So any questions on any of those? So that is all I have today for that. So next step, I believe, would be a public hearing.
All right, any questions for Doug before I open the public hearing? All right, with that, I'd like to open the public hearing regarding setting 2023 property taxes and revenues to the city. Anyone wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing regarding revenue and property taxes.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So next, council could approve the ordinance setting the city's 2023 property tax levy amount, or as we've done in the last several years, just continue to have further discussion and approve this ordinance at a later date or with the 2023 budget adoption.
Great. What's your pleasure, Mary?
I would prefer to continue the discussion.
All right.
I would too as well, since we haven't heard from Public Works yet. I just think it's good to hear from all of our departments first.
Absolutely.
Okay?
All right.
And
Thank you.
Mark's not here either.
And Mark's not here.
All right,
Good
great.
to have him.
We will continue the
Over it.
discussion in our budget
point.
discussions, which of course take place in an open meeting, either at committee at 6 or at council at 7. Public's welcome to join us for those. All right, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
That concludes our regularly scheduled agenda items. I'll ask our city attorney if there is a need for an executive session this evening.
There is.
All right. The city council will now meet in executive session to discuss, and I'm going to ask our city attorney to define that for us.
We're gonna do it pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 19. We're gonna discuss with legal counsel enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding such discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence to the city. It'll be a brief executive session for 5 minutes. We would expect to take no further action following the executive session, but we will reconvene at 8:50. 7:50.
7.
That's fine. We'll adjourn into executive session at 7:42 to the time right now, and we'll reconvene out of that at 7:50.
7:50.
All right, thank you.